أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We send our condolences to the Imam of our time and to Sayyidah Fatima Zahra Salamu alayha on the arrival of Arbaeen. We ask Allah to please include us inshallah next year of those who are the Zawar Imam Hussain. So we may be there on the plains of Karbala reciting Ziyarat Arbaeen that has been now recommended by 11th Imam. In fact, he has labeled it one of the 5 signs of a believer. Is a recitation of the Ziyarah of Arbaeen. May Allah give us tawfiq to recite that Ziyarah sometime today. And if we have already, alhamdulillah, may Allah accept that Ziyarah. Last night we spoke a little bit about resiliency and resistance. We talked about the idea that the victory of Imam Hussain was a victory of resistance. That through it all now, at every chance he had, he reminded individuals that I am not here for fame, for fortune, for government, for money. I'm here for the Islah of the Ummah of my grandfather. I'm here for the reform of my grandfather's nation. And last night, through the Quranic verse of istiqamat and through the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we talked about the idea of victory being resistance, and resistance is victory. That we now must begin to embrace and adopt and emulate Qadha and not simply just admire it or commemorate it. And as the ones who have the ma'rifat of Imam Hussain, as a true Imam, we also have a responsibility to push this mission forward. Now, tonight being my last discussion in this mini 2-part series, I wanted to speak a little bit about the barriers. Why is it that it's tough for us to show that resistance? Why is it that I find sometimes us and my young guys, they kind of give up, throw the white flag or just kind of throw the towel and say, look, I'm done. I can't do this. I can't be the ambassador of religion. So hijabs come off and names change and all sorts of now deviations happen. And it's important for us to understand why this is happening. Our parents are confused. Sometimes even I see, young guys go through their initial years of being baligh. So hijabs come through public school, through high school, they get to university, and now things start to change. It's important for us to understand why this is happening. Our parents are confused. And while there are many reasons why that happens, I want to focus on one. And that is the concept of what I refer to, or what's been referred to as internalized Islamophobia. Let me explain. They get to university and now things start to change. In this BLL movement recently that we've had, that's been triggered by the innocent killings of people like George Floyd and others, I want to focus on in the past couple of years in the US. And that is the concept of what I refer to, or what's been referred to as internalized. And with the arrival of Trump for 4 years as your president now, he was able to unearth and unveil certain realities that sometimes resided deep inside the core of some human beings. And unfortunately, a lot of it came out in the form of racism. And with the arrival of every nation, every individual, dare I say, has an element of racism inside of them. There are those that choose to hide it. There are those who choose to express it. Unfortunately, sometimes in the most devastating ways, racism was expressed up and down the US. And in the process now, what is not talked about sometimes enough is something called internalized racism, where an African-American brother or sister, I'm not saying everybody, of course not everybody, but they begin to internalize that racism, meaning what? That after a while now, you begin to, subconsciously, you begin to feel like they are the superior color and we are the inferior color. An African-American brother, no matter how hard we try, we're always going to have to kind of, climb and scratch and claw and make our way up to the top to only still be 2 levels, 3 levels beneath. You begin to feel like the Caucasian or white America. They are the superior color. And there are some people now who have internalized it. So they've taken it as an external reality and made it into an internal movement, meaning what? They start to subconsciously believe that as a Black person now I am inferior. Still be 2 levels, 3 levels beneath. You begin to feel like the Caucasian. I'm not saying everybody, but there are some people who've done that, and there's research shown, and there's data collected, and you can see it online. This is not something that I'm making up. And the result of that is that now, since they've accepted the fact that no matter how hard I try to become me, I'll never be accepted, I'll always be inferior, let's try to remove the elements that make me look like me. There's research shown, and there's data collected, and so they'll straighten their hair. It's not something that I'm making up. They'll put on, whitening cream, or they'll bleach their skin. They'll go through surgeries to change certain features of their face. Let's try to remove the elements, just in an attempt to at least apparently now look like the superior race. So they'll talk a certain way, dress a certain way, have certain friends, marry a certain color. They'll bleach their skin. They'll go through surgery, and ever so slowly move themselves away from who they truly are, their culture, their identity, their color. Everything that kind of defines them, they try to, of course, do the opposite. Because they believe in the heart of their hearts that, look, we're not going to be superior. There's nothing that we have to offer. Let's go ahead. If you can't beat them, join them, as they say. And ever so slowly move themselves away from who they truly are, their culture, their identity, their color. And I want to take the exact same concept now and bring it towards internalized Islamophobia. They believe in the heart of their hearts that, look, we're not. After a while, when you're young, you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you start to hear enough of what's happening in Yemen right now, in Palestine right now, in Kashmir right now, in Syria right now, Afghanistan right now, the Uyghur Muslims in China, the Nigerian Muslims in Africa, you name it, Islamophobia. After a while, when you're, and you start to see instances of Muhajjaba sisters now being tormented. What's happening in Yemen right now, in Palestine right now. You see people now, being attacked simply based on the color of their skin. In our own part of the world, here in Canada, about 2 hours west of us in London, Ontario. You start to see instances of Muhajjaba sisters now being tormented. There was a Pakistani family that went out for a walk now. This is a few months back. They went out for an evening stroll in the summertime, and there was this non-Muslim Caucasian Canadian who ran them over with the car simply because he saw the hijab, he saw shalwar kameez, he saw dupatta, and he thought these guys are terrorists. I don't know what he thought, but in the process now, he injured one child and he killed the other 4 members of their family. And there was this in a blatant hate crime. Caucasian Canadian. Now you hear that enough. It seems as if the entire world is against the Islamic movement. It seems as if in every Islamic nation, except for a couple of the Emiratis and kingdoms, that there is bloodshed, there's war, there's famine. You start to believe that maybe not everyone is wrong. Maybe it's us who's wrong. Maybe we need to now make it right. Maybe we need to now not be so harsh in our rulings, harsh in our laws, harsh in our judgments, us as Muslims. Now, consciously, subconsciously, we begin to internalize that Islamophobia, where now we begin to say, well, maybe it is us. Okay, maybe we are the problem as Muslims. Maybe they're okay. They're law-abiding, they are civilized, quote unquote. They have the money, right? They seem to be, the superior religion or superior race or superior society. Let's go ahead and now change the way we do things, all in an attempt for us to somehow now resemble them. Maybe they're okay. Just like internalized racism now, any sort of physical trait that might resemble the inferior race, let's go ahead and change that to now resemble the superior race. The same idea. The same idea for us now to remove away from the inferior religion being Islam now. Inside of me, as a Muslim now, I'm going to now try to live my life, look the part where I resemble the superior religion. Okay, so my hijab now becomes a little bit this way. Everything is tied so nicely, but that front area of the bangs has to show for some odd reason. Move away from the inferior religion. My ankles start to show a little bit, right? My sleeves go from a full sleeve to about 3/4. My beard goes down to a very, very low trim. I changed the name. I changed my name so it's digestible by non-Muslims on my business card. Front area of the bag. I don't discuss politics. I don't bring my hijabi wife to our corporate dinners because I'm ashamed of her. Or if she doesn't wear a hijab, I say, look, it's the Christmas party. Go out, get a facial, get your nails done, doll up, and let's take you as a trophy on my arm. So all these disgusting men who I work with can sit there and gawk at my Muslim wife. Because that to me now will be my acceptance. Our corporate dinners. And so any resemblance of being a Muslim, anything, be it our physical looks, our traits, our practices, our rituals, our culture, all of that now is changed. So all these disgusting men who I work with can sit there and gawk. All in an attempt now to somehow be accepted by a superior society that we believe is superior, right? And that all stems from a glaring lack of physical looks, our traits, our practices, of certainty in our deen. All of that. When you don't have the certainty, you won't resist the urge to fight for that religion, a superior society that we believe. It's a big issue, guys, right? And that all stems from a big issue, a glaring lack. So now you hear things like, why should I be the ambassador of Islam? Asad bhai, I didn't sign up for this. You won't resist. Right? We have public outcries when people sit there and they denounce their religion on social media, and then you have Muslims climbing on that social media post and congratulating them for their newfound freedom. Why should I be? We have sisters who take off their hijab and go completely that way. Right? I'm not fine. If you can't cover your hair, you can't wear a hijab. At least be modest in your clothing. But no, for some reason, it's got to be all, or it's got to be nothing. Climbing on that social media post. We have men now who have, wine cellars in their basement, Shia brothers that I know of. Completely that way. A little bit of whiskey here and there whenever I have a rough day. You can't cover your hair, you can't wear a hijab. Right? Adultery, zina, second wife, third wife, all at the expense of the first. All of that is very, very common. We have men now who disrespecting your first wife, being unjust to her. She's not happy with this setup, but you still bolster through it, claiming that this is exactly what the deen wants from me. Adultery, zina, second wife, third wife, all in an attempt now to somehow now mirror or have this image of a society that maybe, just maybe, please accept me. When we realize after giving up everything, that you can't sit there and change the color of your skin. You can't. Nor can you change your name or where you were born or your parents. All an attempt not to somehow now mirror or all of it stems from a lack of certainty. And doubt has an incredible way, I'll use the word incredible, of being both an avenue of kufr and disbelief, an avenue of iman and faith. Doubt, when treated properly, can lead you to a level of certainty that's unshakable. But when that doubt is not treated properly, it absolutely leads to kufr and disbelief and deviation. Kufr and disbelief, an avenue of iman and faith. So while resiliency from last now sounded great on paper, by resistance, yeah, rah, we get it. The reality is that I don't have that much faith in my faith or that amount of certainty in my faith for me now to resist all the elements around me that I know if I give in to them, they'll make me feel accepted. They'll make me feel good. I'll be fulfilled. I'll feel great, blah, blah, blah. I'm not hiding behind this. I'm not avoiding certain topics in terms of Yemen or Palestine. I'm not trying to explain why I don't drink alcohol. I can't, no longer do I need to avoid the Friday night pub nights with my corporate team. I don't need to explain why I'm taking Ashura off. What is Eid? Why do you wear the hijab? All that goes out the window because I'm now one of them. I'm not avoiding certain topics in terms of Yemen or Palestine. Where will you fight for the deen? Where is the resiliency and the resistance? A little bit of the crashing of the waves and we bounce. We're out. See you later. What is Eid? Why do you wear the hijab? So one of the biggest barriers in this idea of resiliency is istiqamat in religion. Where I'm begging my youth now that the deen is a challenge today. Absolutely, it's a challenge. I'm not naive, guys. It's not easy to tread the path of Islam. Because as I said last night, part of the treading of that path is for you to accept the fact that the social norms of today are not the norms of the religion. Look, if I am to summarize the deen is all of the missions of the prophets and the imams from all the way down, dating back to Prophet Adam to the ghibah of our imam. If I can summarize all of them into one, it's basically to come in and change destructive social norms. Are not the norms of the religion. Look, if I am to summarize, they came in now to remove those destructive elements from society. Be it Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, be it Nabi Musa alayhi salam, our holy prophet, Imam Hussain, let's say, you name it. And sometimes they're greeted with acceptance. The young, the old will flock to the holy prophet, and sometimes you are faced with resistance, like 30,000 on the day of Ashura. They came in now to remove those destructive elements from society. But the mission was one. If we're trying to establish some divine rule on this earth, we have to remove those barriers. Plus, pick out those weeds, remove the thorns. And when you do that, not everyone's going to roll out the red carpet for you. I'm sorry. Here's a man, Muhammad Amin, for 40 years. He had earned the right to be called the truthful one. After 40 years now, when the Javani is gone, that desire is gone for money, for power, for women, for fortune, all of that. Then he decides to call himself a prophet of God. And even though they know this man to be nothing but a beautiful character, they're throwing feces at him, garbage at him, putting thorns where he prays, banishing him, sanctions on him, forcing him to migrate, and then ultimately going to war with the man. For fortune. All of that. Then he decides to call himself a prophet of God. Remember, social norms are constructed not by the fact that everyone is doing it. A social norm is constructed when a few people do it and the rest are quiet. Sanctions on him. The burying of daughters alive during the Holy Prophet's time was not done by everybody. Only a few tribes did it. But because everybody else was quiet during that heinous crime, it became a social norm. Just became every day. Imagine walking past a cemetery and seeing a new father burying his newborn daughter alive. You're like, oh, okay. You're burying your daughter alive? Oh, okay. And you keep walking. Like, what society is this right now? I say all that because Imam Zamana will be no different. Every day. He will come to not only establish new norms, but destroy the old destructive ones that go against the mission by which he was asked to come back for. Now me, I have to ask myself, are there social norms today that go against the Imam of our time? Absolutely there are. And you can't tell me otherwise. Now I have to ask myself, am I involved in those norms? Do I propagate those norms? Do I act on those norms? Are those norms for me? Me, I have to ask myself. If so, is it at all possible for me to move away from those norms? I only do that when I believe in the path of the Imam. I only do that when the deen makes sense to me. That's the only time I do it. Otherwise, forget it. Why should I do it? And certainty is very important. There's a lot of my youth out there who have a lot of questions. And I ask you very humbly, seek out your answers. Sometimes I don't get it, guys. Sometimes I'm a little bit baffled. I really am sometimes baffled that I just don't get it with every other profession, science, education, path. If we have a question, we always go towards the expert. Look, if I wake up with a few symptoms and I'm not sure what the symptoms are, I might Google them, I might search it, but ultimately I'm gonna call a doctor and say, look, there's this ongoing, like I woke up with my fingers, having this tingling sensation, for example. Not true, but for example, that's new to me. I have this ongoing ear pain. I went swimming, let's say, for a couple of days before Muharram, and I had this pain in my ear. Initially, I might look it up. Tells me, it might tell me something ridiculous. But until I get a doctor's opinion, I won't really if I have a legal issue, I want to create a power of attorney, let's say, for example, I'm not going to Google that. If there's a rattling noise in my car, I'm not going to Google that. But for some reason, I have all these questions about God, Imam Zamana and Azadari and Imam Hussain and Ghadir and Sunni Shia and Taqleed and Hijab and all of that, but I don't go to the right sources. If you truly want to seek out the answer, seek out the answer. Because I've said this up and down Muharram, I'll say it again to all of you at Zainabiyya. There's never been a moment where this many resources are available to my youth in English as there are right now. There are some ulama who are doing extensive work to bring you a platform of education, of knowledge, of approachability, of courses and classes, of one-on-one sessions, you name it. Qualified scholars who speak your language. When I was growing up in Toronto back in the day, there was not a single hint of English. I learned my tutti putti Urdu through sitting in an Urdu Majlis and understanding one day 5%, one day 20%, asking my father, what does this word mean, that word mean, this word means? And he would tell me. Now, you have a buffet. Now you can pick by ideology, you can pick by, by afkar and thinking, you can pick by topics, you can pick by style of speaking. Now it's now for you to have crippling doubts that might lead you off the path is a shame, and you're running out of excuses. We only understand the powerful impact of certainty. We only understand the powerful impact of certainty when we understand the destructive force of doubt. And by the way, everyone's after certainty. It's not like, oh, I'm 31 now, Sayyid Asad, I should know this. It's embarrassing for me to ask someone, you teach me alif bata, right? I don't know. By now, I should know about God. I don't know about God. I have a huge issue with God, but I'm praying. Hopefully through that prayer, I'll find God. And we're stuck on this idea that if I don't get it between this age, then forget it. And I'm here to tell you that there's no retirement age in Islam. There isn't. Nor are the doubtful ones or the ones who want yaqeen, people who are off the path. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Khalil of Allah, the closest friend of Allah, one of the 5 Ulul Azam prophets, that prophet where all the other monotheistic religions are named after Abrahamic religions, he is the father of these monotheistic religions, the father of it all. He is asking Allah, please, arani kayfa tuhyil mauta. I want you to show me, how do you bring the dead back to life? The Prophet says, awalam tu'min, you don't believe. What happened to your belief? He says, no, no, no. قال بلا. Yeah, I believe. ولكن يطمئن قلبي. There isn't this itminan. There isn't this. I just want a little bit of certainty inside of my heart. I want that certainty. Who wants that certainty? The Prophet of God. That's when he says, take 4 birds, train them now, put them on the mountains. You'll see. He's asking God, I just want to know, how do you do it, God? How do you do it, God? Does that mean and of course he had faith, but he wanted a little bit of a higher level. It's natural. It's natural to know this is the path. Because without this now, you'll be pulled 1,000 ways. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, istajibu lillahi wa lirasuli idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. O you who believe, say labbaik to Allah. Answer the call of God and the Prophet. إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. When they invite you towards that which will bring you life. They're inviting you towards a path of life. And God says, when I invite you, attend the gathering, say labbaik, say yes. Why does God feel the need to say that? Why does God feel the need to sit there and say, you know what, say labbaik to my call? Why? It's not obvious. Look, if I ask my son, go into my bag and get me a red pen. It's a very simple example. Okay, it's a very simple example. Go into my bag, get me a red pen. The fact that I have now made it very clear that go into my bag, get me a red pen, that means there are other pens in that bag that are not red. Correct? A green, a blue, a black one. That's why I'm very specific to saying, look, I want the red pen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, look, I want you to answer my call when I invite you towards life. That means that there are other entities inviting you towards their version of life. Look, the example I'll give you is a very simple one. I've used it before. You're walking into a flea market, into a mall, let's say, for example. Every single store in that mall, in that flea market, in that little carnival is all selling their version of life. Okay? So alcohol says, if you take a sip of me, you'll feel euphoria. Right? Marijuana is there, alcohol is there, casinos are there, for example, social media is there, binge watching is there, for example, binge eating is there, for example, womenizing is there, for example, being with all sorts of men is there, for example. All these things are saying, if you want life, I'll give you life. I'll buy my version of life, buy my version of life. And Allah is also in that mall saying, buy my version of life as well. And by this verse, he's saying, say no, say no, say no, say no, and say labbaik to my call. Istajibu lillahi wa li rasuli. Say labbaik to my call, answer my call, and the prophets. Right? La ilaha illallah. Right? Remove all the small g gods, all the idols. What's left is God. Say no to all the various avenues today that are presenting to my 18-year-old, 21-year-old, 24-year-old that this is what life is. This is what life is. If you just get a couple of subscribers, a few followers, you can make millions on YouTube, man. You could be an influencer. You can be a content creator. But what sells is you have to sell your soul out. No one wants to sit there and watch you pray, read the Quran or pray Salat. No, you have to act foolish. You have to dress inappropriately. Gotta dance a little bit. Gotta make. And I say that as a guy who's on Instagram, by the way. Cheap plug. Let's be real. Let's be real. If we want to be resilient in this time of uncertainty, we have to start with our foundation. Please, I implore all of you. You know me very well. I'm now part of you at Zainabiyah. I'm practically family. I'm a Jafri too. Half your community is Jafris. I'm also a Jafri. Having said that, I ask you, where do we start? Asabhai said, where do we start? We start with God. Start with God. Does God make sense to you or not? All aspects of it, his proofs, his characteristics, why he does what he does, his existence, his features, you name it. Start from scratch. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter to me if you're 21 years old, 61 years old, 93 years old, doesn't matter to me. Story I've told before, Unwane Basri. Unwane Basri was a man who existed during Imam Sadiq's time. There's a very famous hadith called Hadith Unwane Basri. It's online and it is translated into English. Unwan, U-N-W-A-N. Basri, from Basra, B-A-S-R-I. He existed during the time of Imam Sadiq. He was a student of Malik. And he wanted to be a student of Imam Sadiq. He begged our sixth Imam. Our sixth Imam says, look, you have your teacher already. You have Malik, stay with him. I have my students, I'm fine. Unwan al-Basri goes to the masjid, prays salats, begs to Allah, Allah, please soften the heart of Imam Sadiq for me. Any chance he got to ask our sixth Imam, he would. Any chance he got. When finally he went to the home of Imam Sadiq, unannounced, and waited on the floor while the Imam came. Now, one version says that the Imam now returned back from the mosque and saw him at his front door. The other version is that he opened up his front door and saw this man sitting on the ground in Medina in front of the Imam's house, waiting now, and again asking, please, Mawla, take me in as one of your students. It's at that moment that the Imam took him inside and taught him a few things, and that's been related. What he taught Unwan al-Basri is inside that hadith. If you have a moment now, not right now, after my speech, Google it, search it, it's there, beautifully translated. The beauty of this whole story for me is Unwan al-Basri was 94 years old. 94 years old. How many 94-year-olds do you know? I don't know many. But what I do know is that at 90, if I ever reach 94, inshallah, I'm thinking about my grave. I'm thinking about my kafan. I'm thinking about my burial. I'm thinking about this man is sitting. A picture, a 94-year-old frail man sitting on the ground in Medina, sitting on the ground at the door of Imam Sadiq, praying. Hopefully he'll open the door and have a little bit of softness for me. So there is no retirement age when it comes to the knowledge of Islam. There isn't. So this self-imposed trap we have, oh, my window has closed, wo zamana guzar gaya Maulana, I'm done now, whatever, I know, this and that, I'm 19, I don't know how to recite the Quran, so I'm never going to. No, please, don't allow shaitan to enter your mind. If you have questions, foundational questions, seek the answers through the proper means. If that means you spend a little bit of money on a class, then so be it. If that means that you befriend a scholar, or you ask him to take him or take you under his wing or her wing, let's say, for example, then so be it. But don't let that doubt fester inside of you. That doubt can very quickly become kufr. We'll start to believe that Islam doesn't have my answer. And that's a problem. Because every single one of your questions, from zombies to dinosaurs to God, all of them exist inside their religion. All of them do. The problem is that it requires a little bit of work, a little bit of effort, a little bit of zahmat. And sometimes it requires you to approach a scholar and say, look, in my 40s, my beard is white. I need help with my alif bata. Please. Put aside the ego, be uncomfortable, but do it with the hopes that now convert this into certainty. Once you're certain, you'll fight the world for that path. Just get to that level of certainty. Enough for you start to resist all other factors that are coming in to pull you away from that path that now you are certain on. Hope that makes sense to all of you. I tell you, sometimes these young guys, you guys settle, man. Just settle. Okay, it is what it is. I'm not that religious. These big statements you guys make. Meanwhile, I've seen you tackle huge issues in your life. I've seen you succeed in your businesses. I've seen you go back to school after many years. I've seen my sister sometimes get a degree having 3 kids at home. I've seen, people power through. Let's say, for example, they write not 1, but 2, 3 times their bar exam, but they end up They're resilient on their path of the career. I've seen you fight through horrible in-laws. I've seen you come back from a bad divorce. I've seen couples try to have kids for 5-6 years, and then finally they have a child. The strength that you guys have as a youth is incredible. Why you shrink when it comes to the deen, I'll never understand. Why do you simply succumb to the idea that, oh, okay, I'm not that religious. That's for you guys. I said, no, Baba, that's you, man. It's you. Seek for it. Seek it. Fight for it. Convert that doubt into certainty. All the answers you want are right there. Don't be ashamed. If you have religious trauma from when you were younger, I tried asking Molana, but I got scolded, I got yelled at, I got embarrassed, I got ridiculed. One of my Sunday school teachers hit me or something. I ran to a very grumpy Molana Sayyid Sheikh who snapped at me. So I told myself, I'm never going to ask any more questions again. Fight that. Get over that. Please, I'm asking you. Move forward for the sake of your akhirat. We need resistance today. We need resiliency today. These are the days of Arbaeen now. To find that within. I'm with you. Because those days where it was shaitan against you, mano a mano, those are gone. This guy is sending shayateen towards you. Remember yesterday's the example. One Hussain, thousands of enemies. He controlled the narrative. I'm one Asad Jafri. I have thousands of enemies in the form of shayateen looking to pull me off the path, poke me and prick me and hurt me. And I have to be that Hussain that controls the narrative. It's not easy. It's possible. It starts with certainty. Let's move from inheriting Baba's religion to believing in God's religion. Because all the tools right now are there in front of you. And this movement of Imam Hussain now, and by extension Bibi Zainab, was all meant for us to have the tools today to convert our shak into yaqeen, our doubt into certainty. And Arbaeen is that day, those days where now it's the reuniting of these two, the brother and the sister. The coming together of Hussain and Zainab. I left you last night to now where? They have left now the courtyard of Sham. Bibi Zainab now is telling Nu'man ibn Bashir, who was assigned by Yazid to lead them back to Medina, that when there is that fork in the road, take us back towards Karbala. I want to cry for my Hussain. The Qafla now is on its way back towards Karbala. In Karbala, before the Qafla arrives, the very first Za'ir of Imam Hussain is Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Jabir is a very old companion. Some say he has seen 5 different Imams in his lifetime. That doesn't include the Holy Prophet. Jabir hears about Imam Hussain, makes his way towards northern Iraq now, and arrives in the plains of Karbala. Jabir now has lost his sight at this stage in his life and is with his servant called Atiyah. So Atiyah now brings Jabir with his holding his hand into the Maqtal of Karbala now, and there are graves, unmarked graves everywhere. The first thing Jabir does is goes towards Furat, prepares himself for the ziyarah, and he asks Atiyah, find me which one is Hussein's grave. Atiyah says, Jabir, these are not marked graves. I have no idea which one is Hussain, which one isn't Hussein's. He says, I will find Hussein's grave. Simply take me and place me between where there are a lot of graves. I will cry out for Hussain. I will find him. Now Jabir is standing there. There's graves all around him. He begins to say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alayka, ya Aba Abdullah. He begins to say, Assalamu alayka, alaykum. Then he says, Allahu Akbar 3 times, and he waits. There is no response. Complete and utter silence in the plains of Karbala. At that moment now, Jabir, with tears rolling down his face, he then says, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. He says, Mawla, it's Jabir, your servant has come to send his salams to you. Will you not reply to my salams? Do you not know that I am here? And then he says, how could you reply? Your head has been severed. Your body has been trampled. There's zakhm upon zakhm on your body. How could it be? And then from a grave, now Hussein's voice could be heard. Hey, Jabir, this is where my grave is. Jabir collapses on the grave of Imam Hussain, picks up the khag. Mawla, I'm sorry I wasn't here to serve you. He begins to cry with Imam Hussain. He begins to converse to Imam Hussain. Atiyah then says, Jabir, there's a qafla now coming from afar. Jabir says, can you describe this qafla and caravan? Yes, there's black flags everywhere. There's women and children. They're all draped in black. And then Jabir says, are there any men? Are there any men in this qafla? He says, I see one man. He seems a little bit older. His back is bent. His beard is white. There seems to be a scar around his neck and a scar around his wrist. Take me towards that qafla. Jabir is brought in front of the qafla. This man now that Atiyah describes gets off his horse and camel and he stands in front of Jabir. Jabir says, I'm sorry, I don't understand the description that Atiyah has. Who are you and where have you come from? Do you know exactly where you are? And now standing in front of Jabir is this man. He says, Jabir, you don't recognize who I am. Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein. I am your fourth Imam, Imam Sajjad. Jabir falls at the feet of Imam Sajjad. Mawla, what is this description? Atiyah says, your beard is white, your back is bent, there's scars on your neck. Jabir now is being picked up by Imam Sajjad. They embrace. Tell me, Mawla, what happened on the day of Ashura? Imagine Imam Sajjad. Jabir, they killed my father Hussain, Jabir. Jabir, they chopped off the arms of Abu al-Fazl al-Abbas. Jabir, they denied water to my Ali Akbar. Jabir, they burnt our tents one by one, the musibah, the masayib of Ashura. At that moment now, Imam Sajjad says, Jabir, let's move aside. My puppy Amma Zainab now is entering the Maqtal in the Maidan of Karbala. Zainab now enters the Maidan of Karbala. Walk slowly towards Imam Hussein's grave. The first time she's back in Karbala since Asri Ashur. She stands there at the grave of Hussain, begins to cry. Oh, Bhaiya, one last statement. Oh, Bhaiya, my heart is now in 2 different situations. I am at peace now that I'm beside you, but at the same time, I'm also very uncomfortable. Why are you uncomfortable, Zainab? Hussain, Bhaiya, you left me with a 4-year-old amanat on the day of Ashura. I left that amanat in the Zindan of Shah. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين.